Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Mythos Busters, where we would never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line! I'm Sean, and joining me into this glorious morning is Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hi, I have no idea what
Did I stun you into silence?
Yes.
I was kind of hoping I'd get at least one groan. Background, I watched The Princess Bride this last weekend and remembered how amazing and quotable that movie is.
Yes,
so
okay, now
that's that.
I slightly recognized it, and I was like, I've heard that, but it was better? I don't know.
Joining us as well is Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi, good to be back.
Yeah.
Been gone for what, 10 episodes? 10 or 12?
It sure feels like it.
Yes,
but
does.
Part of that is because we just haven't actually legitimately recorded an episode in over a month.
Oh, that would be it.
Yeah, that'll contribute. And my God, guys, we have everyone here today. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
How are you?
My sinuses are cleared after that, but I am officially on the early patrol here in the West Coast. You guys got me up nice and early.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's not like we didn't plan this well in advance, but last night, 10 o'clock rolled around, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to bed. I'm good.
I actually went to sleep nice and early for once. I pretty much live in a constant state of sleep deprivation, but I actually was responsible this time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
I was tucked into my bed at 8:45.
Oh my gosh, you guys!
And it was amazing.
You guys are. I'm gonna jump off the podcast
now.
You're pissing me off.
You're an odd duck as far as sleep goes.
Well, I also had to wake up at like 3:30 yesterday morning to get to work.
Oh.
So like I'm also tired at that point. So.
Oh yeah, when I used to work opening at a coffee shop and have to wake up at 3 something, yeah, I would fall asleep involuntarily around 8 or 9, just pass out.
I didn't even get off the stage until 10:30, so I got home at like 10 to 11, and I talked with Laura for a little bit, and then I'm like, I'm just going right to bed. Like, forget this. And then as I'm laying in bed, I'm like, God, we got a podcast in the morning too.
So life is working at us, is what I'm hearing. We've got a fun episode for you today, guys. We're going to do our normal news catch-up and whatnot, and then we're going to do a little bit of Mythos backpedaling and talk about cards that we've changed our mind on since they've released. So let's just hop right into it, guys. Nick, any community highlights?
I have been so out of touch, I'm going to say no for currently. I'm sure there's a lot of great stuff going on, but I don't have anything prepped.
Fair enough. We'll get caught up after your play is over.
Yes.
What you guys been playing recently? Any fun campaigns going on? And have you tried Carolyn yet? I just finished my first Carolyn campaign. It was fun.
Is her book out?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just finished reading it last night.
Holy shit, a Guardian dropped and Nick is like, what?
I thought you were like proxying her or something. Jeez.
Nope, I ran a backpack Carolyn for an Agnes deck, and it was the first successful Agnes deck that I have had that's run through Carcosa. I actually got the win on Dim Carcosa.
Nice.
That's impressive.
It is. It's a challenge.
It sure is.
I finally started my Skids and Daisy campaign. I've been keeping that in my back pocket. I feel like the end of each of my campaigns when I'm kind of winding it down and getting ready for the next is going to be Skids and Daisy and Solo Windy. So Skids and Daisy are through Phantom of Truth. They survived Unspeakable Oath somehow. That was a nail biter.
What?
Yeah, it was. The thing about the two that people might misunderstand is they're actually a really good combo together. But for some reason, when I play them, I had my worst run of Last King ever. Usually, I'm averaging about 3 interviewed, 4 or 5 on a good day. But they got 1 with no one killed. I've never seen anyone draw that many tentacles and tablets in one game. It was It was just,
Please tell me you burnt that damn house to the ground.
no, I did not, because I'm going for it.
What? You're going to deal with all those bosses?
Yep, I'm going for a doubt run. But Daisy failed like 6 parlay tests on the same person in a row. It was just ridiculous. I cannot believe it. And yeah, at the end, I'm like, okay. And the other thing is, Skids is running the Obel too, so I'm like living on a prayer every game. So I'm like, half the time Skids is just like, see ya, Daisy. So he just ran out of the mansion, and luckily Daisy made it too. But the rest of the time they've been doing pretty well, actually. Skids is running pretty Guardian heavy, and the nice thing now compared to when I played last time with Dunwich is Daisy has some good Skids helping tools, like logical reasoning for Frozen in Fear is worth its weight in gold. Oh god, I'm blanking on the -2 to a fight and evade.
Anatomical diagrams.
Yes, that's the one.
That one's real good.
That one's real good.
Anatomical diagrams.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
So
weakness or whatever.
It is going well, but it's like a razor's edge from disaster each time, especially for Skids, because if he's out, that's a lot of XP down the drain.
I started a Skids and Daisy campaign probably 3/4 of the way through the cycle, so I've already finished it. In fact, my Skids and Daisy campaign was my face check into Dim Carcosa.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you hate yourself?
I just kind of figured let's go hard. And honestly, most of that campaign went really well. You're right, Ian. Those two do actually pair fairly well together because, Skids can do some investigating. I think Rogues have gotten a really good go of cards recently, and Skids has gotten a lot better than I remembered him. So I'll amend my opinions there. But, oh man, when I hit Dim Carcosa, that's when all the bumbling spilled forth. And everything that could have gone wrong in that scenario went wrong. I think I ended with something like 20 horror on Daisy, and Skids got wiped out by one of the treacheries, and yeah, it was a horror show.
Yeah, things could go wrong. My solo man, who was just like amazing throughout the whole campaign, she was rocking like 30 plus XP going into Dim. She got knocked out in like 3 or 4 rounds. It was just bad token draws, bad luck.
I finally finished, or I finally played Dim, and I was doing an expert campaign. Was my face check with 2 guys online, 2 of our listeners, and it was very interesting. We failed. But now, like, I was in that interview about Dim, and now I'm like, wow, this is a lot better than I even thought from hearing a few things in the interview. But expert's rough.
Yeah,
it's
turns out.
Yeah, it's a dick punch, like every turn. But
all right, well, let's move it on to the news because we have a fair amount to catch up on. It's just a terrible idea to take a month off, it turns out. Ian, what we got? Get us rolling.
All right, so the first bit of news is the announcement of the second Mythos pack in the upcoming Forgotten Age cycle, which is The Boundary Beyond. Apparently, this is going to deal with, I'm not so sure so much time travel as the breaking down of barriers between all time is how it's being described. So kind of the cool mechanic is these locations, but they're going to represent both. Oh, we're going back to Mexico, by the way, which is cool. But the locations are going to represent both modern day locations, and apparently in different ways we're also going to get some past locations. So we're going to be existing both in the past and present of Mexico at the same time, which is amazing. I'm already liking some of the art on some of the past locations that I see. So that's about it. Won't delve too much into these scenarios, just so it can stay fresh for those who are looking for that. As far as player cards, though, we do have, let's see, the first one is a Mystic card, Recall the Future. So we'll have our resident Mystic read that one.
Recall the Future is a level 2 Mystic asset. It has 2 cost, it has an intellect and agility icon, it has the augury and ritual traits. And reaction, when a skill test you are performing begins, if Recall the Future is ready, name a chaos token. If the named Chaos token is revealed during this skill test, exhaust Recall the Future. Then, you get +2 skill value for this skill test.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool effect. I think I'm generally pretty terrible at like trying to hedge against the Chaos bag. Any of the things that kind of require you, like Defiance, like I never ever bloody hit on Defiance. Like I love what that card's doing, but I never include it just because I'm so terrible at it. So I'm kind of curious if this is around the same.
It seems like this is the
way.
card you include in a Jim Culver deck in a Carcosa run, and that's about it. Because then you just say Skull.
The thing is this the thing that this has over something like Defiance is you can name any Chaos token.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be a bad stuff token. So, you know, when that -4 or -5 hits the bag, whenever...
Yeah.
Because, god damn.
That's the thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's the thing I like about it is for when you... In both campaigns, we've gotten that -5 towards the end. And I really like it for that it's basically means you have to pump less. Which is the name of an upcoming Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary.
You know, I really do like this for Hardened Expert, exactly for what you said, Sean, is it's any token. Because oftentimes the picture tokens are like probably around -5 at most, and then you have a -6 in the bag and a -8. So you can pump to 6 if you have to pass this test, name the -8, and then you've got like kind of your bag cleared. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
I mean, so what's interesting is, you know, in any given bag, if you can pump up to a certain moderately high level, you're at a point where 2 or 3 tokens in the bag could make you fail. So I mean, you know, if you can nail 1 or 2 tokens with this, because you're never going to get to nail the tentacle, but if you can, you know, preclude 1 or 2 of those from making you fail, that's not a bad thing to do.
You could name the Chaos token, or you could name the autofail token.
Yeah,
Well,
but
Well, you just fail by more, and then
You'll still just resolve at 0.
Yeah. The other thing I like about it is that it doesn't exhaust until you're correct. It would kind of
that is a nice touch.
It would kind of suck if it exhausted, you know,
yeah.
when you just named it.
Oh, so it's like better Defiance. Okay, I can get on board with that. The fact that you use Defiance, whether or not you hit that token, that sucks.
Defiance always
really
gives
cool.
you
I
a
did not catch
+1,
that detail.
though.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
but this is repeatable Defiance, and you only use it when you use... Yeah.
But it's 2 XP, and you got to play it down. So, yeah, I don't know, I kind of like where this is at. I'm kind of excited to play around with it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the next card in the list is a Seeker card, which I guess I shall throw to Scott. This is Quick Study with some of the funniest art I've ever seen.
Yeah, so we have... what was that show? What's the Millionaire Kid?
Doogie Howard
I was
Esquire.
just gonna say
Oh, Richie Rich. I'm thinking like
Richie Rich. Yeah.
So, Quick Study, it is a 2-cost, level 2 asset for Seeker. It's got a willpower and agility pip. It is a talent, and it has the fast action. Place one of your clues on your location, and exhaust Quick Study. You get +3 skill value for the skill test. I think Nick likes this for Roland.
I do, but there's already like so many other tools that put your clues on the location. So many. I think there's 2. But
do they give you +3?
No,
To your next
they
skill
don't.
test? Because you can put one of your clues down and investigate, and you get +3 to investigating.
Right.
And then also
get the
chuck
clue
an
back.
Acquiring Mind.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I like what it's doing, obviously. But I don't know if I would. I probably would still put one of these in my Roland deck, though. Actually, and then just for those fight tests, you know, that I really need the higher.
If you're rocking a build that's not running Malicin, and you just kind of need one more thing to throw clues down.
Most of my builds don't run Malicin anymore, so yeah, and they're tight on resources. Let me tell you.
Not that he needed it, and it's probably hard to work in, but I think it's pretty decent in Rex. Because you can put it down, get +3, and then probably get it and another clue
potentially
back.
get 2 back.
And then if you have those,
or if
the
you're
glyphs,
the guiding stones,
yeah, like you could get a bunch of clues. So
interesting. I never even considered putting this in Rex, but yeah, he's gonna get it back anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think for probably Min and Daisy, I don't know, I'd probably be cooler on this one. Just because higher ed exists, it's a thing that's...
And like putting a clue down is a big cost. That is bigger than paying a resource or two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like in a world where higher ed exists, that's permanent, only one more XP. You know, having 5 cards in your hand as a Seeker is not that hard. Though, you know, it is a thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because Seekers, like, how often do they care about an agility or fight test? Like, for the most part, for most Seekers, I think, you know,
this is a lot of
higher ed's just going to do the same thing.
There's a lot of XP and resources to put into needing this for a one-off agility test.
Yep.
All right. Our next card is a Guardian card, and since we have our Guardian back, Nick, you can retake the initiative. Nick? Did we lose Nick?
I think Nick died.
Okay. I will retake the initiative then.
Nick is not taking the initiative.
Yeah, this is really a dedication to a joke. I mean, I know Nick usually dedicates to the jokes, but... Okay, take the initiative is a skill with 3 wild icons, practiced and bold traded. Commit only to a skill test you are performing. Take the initiative loses 1 wild icon for each action that has been completed by any investigator this phase. So you're committing at first action.
Yeah. I think this is just like a super fun themey card.
It's not innate, which makes me sad, because Yorick can't recycle this with True Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, it seems strong. Like when you first look at it, it's like, cool, 3 wild icons. Oh, I just have to use it first turn. But you also have to use it on your first skill. Or then it becomes first action, and then it becomes an unexpected courage on your second, and then it becomes just a single.
Which isn't bad, but
what if it had 4 wild icons but cost 1 experience?
Yes,
I would like that better personally, because then that way you can use it on your third action and it's still worth 1 wild. But if you use it on your first action, it's worth 4.
Well, it's still worth 1 wild on your third action right now.
Oh, I suppose, yeah. Unless you're playing with a rogue who sneaks a sneaky action in the middle of your turn.
Yeah. Well, for this team,
Ian just jumps.
You'd have to be the first player, or the lead investigator going that turn, and it has to be your first action to get all 3 pips, right? Like if the rogue goes first and then you go, now it's 0.
Right. Yep.
So.
Which I find a lot of times I like Guardians to go first in multiplayer if they have an enemy engaged, because you kind of want to see how they do with that enemy if they're going to need help.
That's very true.
But kind of where I'm at with this card is I like it as a card on its own, like just in a vacuum. But then thinking about putting it into a deck, I find my skill slots super compacted these days.
Yeah.
And just... I don't know if I would find a spot for this over, a lot of other cards that I want to find space for in my deck. It's getting hard to make those cuts.
Yeah, and like other skill cards that would go in most Guardian decks, like Vicious Blow, I wouldn't put this in place of Vicious Blow. And in my Roland deck, I wouldn't put it in place of Inquiring Mind, so it's a tough one.
Yeah. 30 cards is tight, man.
Yeah.
So that about wraps it up, I believe, for this particular article. So looking forward to that whenever it comes out. Hopefully we'll see Forgotten Age soon. The rumor mill has been churning about May, but we'll see. The next...
Oh, wait, I thought it was April 6th. Was that not a thing?
Yeah, I think that's a thing. I think if you go check your stores, it'll be there now, because it went back in time.
Maybe they just sold out.
So committing to that terrible, terrible in-joke that has infected our Discord.
Every release is now released on April 6th. So the next article is one of the most mind-blowing articles I've ever seen for a game. I don't know about you guys, just for what it contains. Because this was the announcement of the Survivor investigator in the Forgotten Age. So I shall let... Scott blow all our minds here.
Oh man,
by reading Calvin
this stat line. Okay. This would be my stat line if the apocalypse ever came. Calvin Wright, the Haunted. He has 0 willpower, 0 intellect, 0 strength, or combat and 0 agility. He is cursed, obviously, and a drifter. So you get +1 willpower and +1 intellect for each horror on you, and +1 strength and +1 agility for each damage on you. His Elder Sign effect is +0. You may either heal 1 damage or horror, or take a direct damage or direct horror. And he's a 6/6 for health and sanity. If you hurt him, I'll kill you. But not with my current stats.
I will eventually kill you. Just give me a second. And unlike the other investigators, they actually showed us his backside, which consists of spirit cards level 0 to 3, and then the usual, neutral and survivor 0 to 5.
That's actually impressive because there are a lot of good spirit cards.
Mm-hmm.
I like Test of Will and Unexpected Courage. Oh wait, God, those are actually cards in here. I'm just trying to make a Lord of the Rings joke.
Oh. And,
both of those are actual.
Stand Together is a really good, if you're multiplayer, is a good spirit one. And deck size of 30, as you probably assumed. But
So I feel like this is one of the most divisive investigators I've seen, just if you go by Facebook commentary, which is not a good general life approach. But
it's a good place to go if you want divisiveness, though.
But if you want divisiveness, it's got you covered. But the responses range from complete garbage, what are the designers thinking, to I love him. Where do you guys fall on Calvin Wright?
Nerf.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just going to ask, would you play him solo? But it looks like one of our live listeners has played him solo through Night of the Zealot and Carcosa, I'm assuming as a proxy, and saying that it actually came out pretty good. So, that's interesting.
Huh.
Because I look at him and I go, probably wouldn't try him solo.
One of the things I love about Matt is that he is not afraid to do just weird things.
Yes. Yeah.
But when I saw this one, I'm like, oh my God, he's gone too far. What have we done?
He didn't stop to think whether he should.
Yeah, so this one's interesting.
It is.
So, assuming you're going like redlining, balls to the wall, taking as much as you can, he's got 5s for his stats, but 1 direct anything knocks you out.
Yeah.
So when you build for him, you probably don't, you don't have a whole lot for healing, so is it all just, like, test, like, replacement stuff, and then you just fail the first few tests in a game, and then just start replacing tests or whatever? I can't even think about how to build him.
I mean, you probably run the coat and the keepsake to spill stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yep.
Potentially Pete.
Pete,
yeah. Pete, keep him on the straight and narrow. Also help out with his stats once you upgrade him.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Well, I think, you just hope for a, grasping hands, or...
Rotting Remains.
That's
early
it, yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And you're just like, sweet, I'm a 0. Then you pull the
now you're +3,
Yeah.
The fact that he's a survivor at 6/6, which, survivors are generally pretty hardy.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if in an earlier incarnation he had more health and sanity and that was just busted.
I was going to say, imagine him even at 7/7, and that would mean you could get up to 6s on every stat. Like that, oof.
Yeah, the thing is, as some people are pointing out in the chat, we have a few options for boosting stats globally, including in faction with Dark Horse. We have the key, the neutral key that, can bump him all up. So you could, best case scenario, which isn't going to happen that often, you could probably get him up to like 9s or 10s in some of the stats, which would be insane. But I really love this design just because I'm a fan of insane card designs that just go where you don't think they're going to go. But I think part of why it's cool is because it makes you rethink how you approach campaigns and trauma specifically. Just because, now all of a sudden trauma isn't, I guess we should read his signatures in a second, but trauma isn't something that's always bad because that means an auto boost for you. But then you also have to ride the line of You want to get your trauma up
with
there,
real boy
but...
stats.
Yeah, but otherwise, if you get your trauma too high, then you're going to be in a bit of trouble, especially if your weakness pops up, which I guess we should read once I can find it.
I got it right here.
1 second. Okay.
Do you want me to read it? I'll just read it.
Sure.
Okay. Until End of Time is an asset, costs 1 resource, has a combat and a wild skill icon. It is talent traded. Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. This is his signature.
Just
Hang
keep
on.
going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, just
okay.
go ahead and read that one.
That took me a minute. Calvin Wright deck only, surprising. Direct damage and direct horror may be assigned to Until End of Time, and that has 2 health and 2 sanity. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm not usually one for like showing or pointing out flavor text, but with the art together of him standing on this cliffside with a shield or whatever, facing some great old one or something, unyielding, uncompromising, he stood resolute in defiance of his fate. That's cool.
Yeah, so this is what we were talking
really cool
about.
art.
This is a way of protecting you when you're kind of writing that line. And this is also how I love how the community figured out we were getting Calvin just from seeing this image in a single W.
Right.
The card text. You guys are crazy, but I love you.
I feel like this is a really good Listerine commercial too, like Calvin standing resolute against eldritch halitosis.
And that's the Listerine bubble protecting him.
Yes.
I must say too, Mr. Treasures pointed this out in the chat. When you go into Carcosa, in Dim Carcosa, and you start piling on the horror.
Yeah, because there's no upper limit, is there?
No, there really isn't. He could you get pretty high.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm investigating out of 14.
So his weakness is Voice of the Messenger, which is a curse and a pact. Revelation, you must either choose one, take 1 direct damage, and suffer 1 physical trauma, or take 1 direct horror and suffer 1 mental trauma. Yeah, this weakness just deals you a trauma straight up.
Yeah.
If this wasn't any other investigator, that's just like, okay, you're staying in the binder forever.
Yeah, that's intense.
But for Calvin, it could potentially be worthwhile, except for if you start drawing it every single scenario.
If you see it like 3 or 4 times a campaign, it might actually be good.
Yeah.
Well, depending on when you see it, though, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
When you're redlining it, maybe not.
And I feel like with Calvin, you're always redlining
I think
it.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
Spelled with a W.
Well, that's my thing with Calvin, which is I think why we had some of the divisiveness is because he's for players who like to take a risk. Like, you don't pick Calvin if you want the nice, safe, efficient, effective, all the time approach. You play Calvin if you like riding the line and gambling. And
If you want a ride,
yep,
you play Calvin.
That's pretty much his tagline.
I'm excited to get hands on him. He seems interesting.
Yes. He would be an insane blind run because I feel like he's not the best in the blind run. Like, ideally, you want to play him when you know what's coming, but if you want an interesting experience, go blind with Calvin.
Pro tip. You know what? I'm going to do Forbidden Age or Forgotten Age. Blind Run Calvin is going to be my solo. I'm going to do it.
Okay,
we expect player reports back.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Let's see if I make it through 3 scenarios.
Let's see, what new cards did we get? We got Dumb Luck. I think Sean hasn't read it in a while, so...
Dumb Luck. Oh, God. Yeah, my favorite kind of luck, it turns out. So this is a level 0 survivor event. It is 2 cost. It has 2 agility icons. Fortune traded, so Rex can't take it. Sorry, Rex. Fast. Play after you fail a skill test by 2 or less during an evasion attempt against a non-elite enemy. Place that enemy on top of the encounter deck. Fortune favors the oblivious. So, it's the evasion counterpart to Look What I Found and Oops, right?
Yep. This is
Which
the
is cool.
definition of kicking the can down the road.
Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of like a powered down version of Close Call.
Yeah.
Whereas close call, if after you evade something, you can shuffle it into the encounter deck. This just lets you.
Yeah. This would be nice when you know the agenda shuffles the encounter deck if you play it right before that.
Yeah.
Or against an enemy that has a specific spawn location, and you can scoot away before it comes back.
Yeah, good call.
Or if your lead investigator is someone who can handle a monster.
Or that.
Now that we kind of talked that out, I think this is better than my first blush look at it. I think there's ways to play around with it. I'm not sure it's a 2 of. And quite honestly, most survivors are okay at either dealing with bad guys through combat or agility.
Yeah.
I don't know. It does have the 2
Whenever
skill
we get
tips,
these...
so.
Yes, exactly. Whenever we get these cards with 2 skill icons, I always think to myself, okay, would I be okay with this swapping in for my manual dexterity?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a 1 of, I'd probably be okay with it.
Yeah,
for an investigator who's going to be evading things.
Yeah. It's okay. I have to play with it, but it's okay. Maybe it'll be on our next episode of Mythos Backpedals.
Listener, the Black Horror brings up that it's a good way to get rid of enemies with a lot of doom on them. I would agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
If you're playing against a cultist deck and suddenly there's 3 doom, like Echoes of the Past or something like that, and good way to just cheat it out.
It's interesting, though, because... Okay, so look what I found. It doesn't really count as too much of a negative that you're kind of more or less trying to fail. Like, there's always stories, and of course it's happened to me, where you're just trying to fail this goddamn investigate test so you can snag those 2 clues off.
Yeah.
And you just can't fail it to save your life. It's like, +1s, where were you all game? So, kind of that idea that you're trying to trigger this effect, and in order to do that you have to fail. That's something to consider, because God knows in that moment where you really need it, you're gonna pull your Elder Sign or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's one to
I think this is somewhere between Look What I Found and Oops.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I've never liked the try to fail deck type. Some people try to make it, but I always see it like, Look What I Found is you're trying to get clues, and when you don't, you still get clues.
You still get clues.
Not that I'm
it's a contingency.
Attempting to fail. Like, yeah.
I love the flavor text, though. Because fortune favors the bold is one of my favorite things to say before I do something real dumb.
It's true. Usually does come up right before a dumb action.
Yeah, I think they included it particularly as an idea for Calvin too, which I could see, but I also feel like Calvin, if I have an enemy, I almost just want to keep the enemy there so it can punch me or tentacle me or whatever the case, just so I can raise my stats. I don't know. Guess I have to play Calvin to be more informed on that. So I think that about does it for that. Super looking forward to that investigator. We then got another preview of The Forgotten Age entitled Welcome to the Jungle. I knew they couldn't resist that forever. This one, however, is not focused on any investigator like the others. This one delves a bit more into kind of the interesting mechanics. The first of which is kind of a cool nod to those old game book or choose your own adventure books where you would buy supplies and list them on your inventory, because that's going to happen in Forgotten Age, where there are supplies that don't exist in card form, but there's stuff we're going to actually have to decide what to take with us. The examples they give are medicine, which costs 2 supply points apparently, or rope, which costs 3 supply points. And
it's like Oregon Trail. Don't buy too much food and let it spoil.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a chance to hunt at some point. But but the nice thing is that you don't know, well, at least in your blind plays, you don't have no idea what you need to bring. So you kind of have to make that decision. I have a feeling, though, in a campaign featuring snakes that are probably poisonous, medicine will probably be a good choice. Just a thought.
Pro tips.
We did get a card spoiled, though, that kind of goes on with that adventure theme. This is the Backpack, which is a neutral 2-cost asset with 1 agility icon, item traded. Reaction: after Backpack enters play, search the top 6 cards of your deck for up to 3 non-weakness item or supply cards, and attach them face down to Backpack. Shuffle your deck. Cards attached to Backpack may be played as if they were in your hand. If there are no cards attached to Backpack, discard it, and it takes up your body slot.
Backpack, 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 backpack.
Is that Dora?
Sure is.
Oh, okay.
We just need the map now.
Swiper, no swiping. Seems like you look at the top 6 cards, you're probably going to find, I think, at least 2 item or supply cards. Like, those 2 are pretty generic traits for things to have, I find.
Yeah.
I wish it dug a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 cost and an action and a slot. Like, I know the body slot's not something we're terribly worried about at the moment in our current place in the card pool, but I wish it dug a little bit deeper.
Maybe we'll get an upgraded backpack at some point. Enhanced backpack. I think it's potentially good for, I don't know, for Guardians maybe, because you're running a lot of items in the form of weapons, and you probably have a good chance of hitting some of those.
And maybe supply cards. Like, if you're advanced up and, extra ammo, for instance. I know not a lot of people run it, but that's a supply card.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I have a feeling that items and supplies, there's going to be things you do with them, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. This is good corrosion protection, too, is it not? Because does that count as being in play if they're face down?
No, the backpack would be in play, but the cards
but the items itself.
No.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't quite protect it because you'd have to discard the backpack if nothing
And I'm thinking
else is there.
With the cards on it, so it's even worse for corrosion. God damn.
Never mind.
As far as I understand, like, what I'm thinking here is cards attached to backpack may be played as if they were in your hand. Do you play skill cards or do you commit? Like, I don't think committing a card is playing it.
Yeah,
no,
think it's different.
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
but are there any supply or
No,
item
but
skill cards?
if you wanted to commit those cards to a test, like, I don't think you can.
No, I don't think so.
I would agree. That would be my interpretation.
And I don't think
well.
you can't discard cards from underneath it to corrosion, like you said. Like, it's simply, they're in your backpack, you can pull them out and put them into play. But
I'm just waiting for us to get the fanny pack asset that just holds 1 item and gives you a minus to your parlay test because you're wearing a fanny pack.
That's a bum bag to those of you in the UK.
no.
Fanny means something different over there, it turns out.
Yeah, sure does. Okay, so that's our new backpack. I'm loving this kind of adventure, leaning hard into this whole adventure aspect, which if we know Matt, he's gonna go all out with that. So any cycle featuring snakes and Yig isn't complete without poison. So the poison weakness it's not a basic weakness, so this is something we will get through the course of playing somehow. I have no idea who is next, but Scott, you can read poisoned.
Oh, thank you. Poisoned weakness. It has the trait poison. Limit 1 per investigator.
Poison.
Limit 1 per deck.
I mean, is anyone else singing Belle Biv DeVoe in their head right
the
now?
whole time.
Limit 1 per investigator, limit 1 per deck. Permanent, you are poisoned. And then in brackets, this has no game effect on its own. Other card effects may change or become stronger while you are poisoned. So probably something like treachery cards and, like, if you're poisoned, lose an action or something like that, right?
Yeah, kind of how it was like something in your drinks if you had a drink. I want to make an alt art card version of this just so I can put the flavor text of "Never trust a big butt and a smile" on there. From Belle Biv
Poison. All right.
Never trust a big snake and a smile.
Yeah, there you go.
We also got the keywords explained.
Yes.
Vengeance and... Yeah.
Yeah, so vengeance is kind of an anti-victory that apparently, if it's added to the victory display because you decide to kill it, then it doesn't have any impact on the game, but it's, the article is kind of coy about it. That just says, unless specifically referenced by another card. Hint, hint. So, yeah, I have no doubt it'll play a part. I wouldn't be surprised also if it kind of gets mentioned by various campaign log stuff. If
That's what I was
if you have
too.
this many vengeance points, because I know Yig is all about he doesn't like you killing his snake children, so that could potentially be bad.
This is just further evidence to our positing that agility and evasion is going to get front and center seat for this campaign, because it looks like you're going to be actively punished for just blasting through all the enemies in the deck.
But the new alert keyword is basically retaliate when you fail agility tests. So
Yeah.
it's and there's one enemy they're showing, she has alert and retaliate. So yeah. When she shows up, it's if you fail doing anything to her, including the parlay test on her, she just punches you right in the mouth.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. When you
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The parlay to convince her, blah blah blah. If you fail and she's ready, she attacks you.
No sudden movements around her.
Pretty much.
She's got her and you on her side. Yeah,
she's the explosive one in the group that everyone treads lightly.
I like that world where all the evaded characters didn't have to worry about getting hit back for failing, but that world is no more because of the alert keyword.
Finally, it's fair.
Damn it. I just have to bring Catburger along then. Yeah, so I don't know. Any final thoughts on these new mechanics? Or are you just waiting to see how it goes?
Just can't wait to get my Calvin Wright fail on.
I want to see the Mystic. We have rumblings and a little bit of a spoiler as to who it is out there in the community, but we've yet to see the actual card previewed, so I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, that's the last one, right? Because we got Ursula, Calvin, oh god, I'm blanking now.
Who's the
Finn and
he's the
Leo.
old
Leo.
Yeah, there we go.
And Leo, that's right. Yeah, so that's the Mystic is the last one.
Maybe there's no Mystic in this box.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
it's just 4.
4 and a neutral. Yeah.
And the neutrals deck building rules say no Mystic cards, and that's it.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Are you guys talking? I'm just hearing white noise right now.
Maybe it's Stanley Dianeson. I don't know.
Stan Dianley.
That's so much better.
That's the one. Okay, so the last article was written by some guys. I don't know who these guys are. Frank and Peter. Have you guys heard of them before?
No.
I hear they eat babies.
That is true. I think they're part of the Drawn to the Baby podcast.
Allegedly.
Drawn to the Crib podcast. Oh, God, that's so bad. Just kidding. Okay, so Frank and Peter from Drawn to the Flame podcast wrote a guest article for FFG, and actually I should say not just one, because apparently this is the first in a series of articles looking into each faction. So go check out the Seekers of Knowledge article, which has them look at the Seeker faction first. I expect the Rogue article to be, come in at least 3 installments, because there's so much to say about how good they are.
Yeah, and while the article doesn't have any new spoilers in it, I would still recommend you go read it. And shit, I got so vicariously angry for them when I went out to social media and saw the different posts that were previewing this article, and then in the comments, just people asking oh, does it have the release date for Forgotten Age? It's come on!
Yeah, or no
Please
new
read
spoiled
the damn
cards.
thing.
Yeah. Yes, you should be happy that we're getting community support, and they did this for Lord of the Rings and other LCGs in the past, so it's nice to see them do it for Arkham and tap the community for writing these kinds of articles.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for the news.
The news. All right, finally caught up. Wow, we're only an hour in. That's pretty. That's pretty efficient for us.
Yeah. Mythos Busters News Hour.
Yeah. All right. So before we move into our main topic, Scott, do you have any rules PSAs you'd want to put out there?
No.
Yay.
Nice. No. Honestly, I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, I don't think there's been any like big breaking rules questions that everyone's like, oh, ones that change how cards are interpreted. So no.
Yeah. All right, guys, so let's move it on into the discussion topic at hand. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about cards that we've turned around on, that we're seeing now with fresh eyes. Ian, this was your brainchild, so why don't you take it away?
I was going to go more for turn around.
That's a good call, too. You turn me right round.
That one has different connotations. Anyone who's been on the internet knows that one has different connotations.
Mm-hmm.
No, just
Ian,
me.
Are you peeking at my answers right now?
I was.
Oh, okay. So, I suppose there's several reasons you might turn around on a card. New Investigator comes out that gives it new life. Other new cards that combo well with it. Or you just try it out and it exceeds your expectations. So, Ian, why don't you hit us up with your first one?
Okay. My first one is... let's see. How do I want to start this off? I will start off with a previously mentioned card, which is... Now I'm scared that I'm taking one of yours, but whatever.
That's how this is going to work.
Yeah. Take 'em. Defiance is the first card that sprang to mind. Maybe the second card that sprang to mind for me. Of going for one that I was initially just like, sucks, move on. And I now think it's actually a pretty good card. Maybe campaign specific, difficulty specific, but definitely in Carcosa, it's one I've included in my Mystic decks.
That Defiance is also on my list. For me, it was starting to play Hardened Expert, and being able to give yourself a +1, plus usually like the on Expert, the Elder Beast thing, whatever token, is usually like 5 or 6, like -5 or 6, and so to knock that out, plus give yourself +1, and ignore that effect, like it is quite strong. And
I hear that knocking out the Elder thing is what the kids are calling it nowadays.
That's what we do at the end of most campaigns, don't we? Isn't that the point? Yeah, so I completely agree, and that is a card that initially I was like, oh yeah, okay, and now it's a serious tech card that I'll use.
So okay, you guys. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, where I recognize the value of it, but I'm just so help me be better at this card. What do you call when you play it?
You call whatever you're playing in Carcosa. Because you wouldn't, honestly, would you run this in Dunwich? Probably not.
No, probably not.
But in Carcosa, you've got 3 skulls plus 2 of one other token.
Well,
that's 5.
Dunwich, you could maybe.
Well, sure.
If you've kept a clean bag, right? Like,
yeah,
possibly. But Carcosa, it's much better, and like, so what you do is you basically you pump as high as you feel comfortable, and you have to know the numbers in the bag, like. I'll sometimes have a little piece of paper so I know which tokens are in there. And then you're like, okay, at what line do I feel like I can stop pumping here? And then adding a Defiance, does that then take 2 tokens off of the fail side of the line? And so you name that token. And that just moved your, like, before you had 5 tokens that would make you fail, now you have 3.
So then with Defiance, do you choose the token that is most likely to come up, or do you choose the token that is most detrimental if you pull it?
It depends.
Because my first thought is Skull, but Skulls are generally the least impactful of the 4 tokens. Right. So then do you just go...
I don't know, the skull has, at least in Carcosa, has been scaling. So if you're late in a scenario, a lot of times that skull's pretty terrible. So I'd say that's a good call sometimes.
If it's the one that's going to make me fail, but like let's say skull is a -7 and tablet is a -4 with a bad thing if I fail. If I'm at +4 and I pull the tablet, I don't care.
Sure.
Right. So you don't name tablet because you've already covered that token. So then I would name skull because that's taking 2 or 3 tokens from the fail side of my line in the bag and moving them to the pass side. And if you add defiance, now you're at a +5, which takes care of the -5.
Nice.
I think the other side of it is also, I could be wrong, but I feel like Carcosa had more just really bad if you fail effects that kind of
there were some pretty
nasty I'm thinking of one, I think it might be in Pallid, where it reduces the damage you do. That one
Cultist,
sucks.
I think.
Yeah, in both campaigns I think there have been ones that trigger some kind of automatic attack, so there are ways that you can use Defiance as kind of just hedging your bets that if this shows up, this is the end for me and I need to ward it off, essentially. Right. So I don't think it's necessarily 2 of in every deck, but it's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
So somewhere Peter from Drawn to the Flame is smiling ear to ear that Defiance got this much airtime on our podcast. Scott, why don't you hit us up with your first one?
Okay, my first one's pretty crazy. It's because when I guess we should say, we kind of concentrated on core and Dunwich with this, and so I went through all the cards in the core. I'm like, what card did I think was initially and now has become quite powerful? None other than Daisy Walker. I'm just thinking Daisy in general.
Oh my god!
I mean, it's true. She is a card
because she went from, I would say, below average investigator in the core to possibly one of the biggest powerhouses now, with all the combat tricks that Survivor has, all the Seeker, all the undiscovered, untranslated stuff, higher education. Like, you can build an incredible Daisy deck now that can just wreck scenarios, even on solo.
Well, the options she has available to her are so wide too. Yeah. Like you can go Milan, you can go Renfield, you can go Spell Heavy, you can go all Seeker.
Yeah, once you have higher ed, like, I mean, you might be like, okay, I guess I'll shrivel at 9. There we go. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a completely normal thing that happens.
And she's your combo deck too, because that free ability on Old Book of Lore just digging all game.
Huge.
Yep. Absolutely. So I know it's pretty brash for me to choose an investigator, but she's, to me,
I like it,
the biggest change that I've seen from core set to now.
Yeah, and as I mentioned with Skiz and Daisy, she's one of the best support choices in multiplayer. I feel like between Encyclopedia, what you mentioned, Old Book of Lore, Logical Reasoning, all those cards, she can bail people out.
Yeah,
she's got tools.
And she can run Book of Shadows now. It still isn't amazing, but she can run it.
The young adult version.
The Cliff version. Notes of Book of Shadows.
Yeah.
All right. Nick, why don't you hit us up with your first one?
Okay. What is my first one? Let me look back at my notes here. Oh, yes.
Shotgun.
I had a hard... No. Okay. I had Shotgun on that list at first. And then I was just like, no, it's still really good. Like, sure, Lightning Gun is better, but that's more experience. Like, of course it's going to be better. It's more experience. So I was like, what cards, when they first came out, was I like, oh, this is awesome. And then now I since simply just straight up don't use them. And the first one that came to mind was, honestly, often my second pick after Shotgun, and that was Extra Ammunition, because Shotgun only has 2 rounds on it, so it'd be nice to get more. It's only 1 experience, but I think it's just because it's so... Like, there's so many options for weapons now that when one runs empty, it's often more useful to just swap it out with something else, rather than hope you draw into your extra ammunition and hope that weapon is in play and that sort of thing. It just felt a little too narrow of a use for me, and I ended up not using it anymore. And that's kind of where I landed with it.
You know what's funny? I think you're going to turn around again.
Every now and then I get a little bit...
Because you probably have not had much of a chance to try out Stick to the Plan yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh
and
my
you're right.
God.
That
Stick to
is,
the plan.
that. There you go. Like that would.
Yeah, Stick to the Plan makes extra ammo playable.
Yes.
Well, and I wouldn't argue that it's unplayable. It's just that it's more reliant on a specific board state and specific situation. And like if it did, I don't know how you could do it, but if it did something other than just firearms, or if there was some way, you know what I mean? Like it just by itself.
There is. They call it contraband.
Yeah. Oh, gross.
Oh God.
Even the rogue player.
We don't talk about contraband at rogue parties.
I think Stick to the Plan, once it comes out, extra ammo is going to be like a snap pick. Like that is an easy 1 XP, and to always have it out essentially and available. Oh my goodness!
I totally agree.
Yeah, I wrapped up my Norman Zoe lightning gun build, and she had Stick to the Plan with a single copy of extra ammo, and that card did work.
Yep.
Added so many damn charges or ammo to that lightning gun. It was amazing.
Yeah, once you actually play that lightning gun instead of sliding it into hand, and all of a sudden it's 6 ammo after you just spent like 3 loads of it, like shoot
after
for
you
3.
Just melted a big enemy.
I slide in, shoot 3 times, slide in, shoot 3 times, play it, shoot 6 times. Like everything is just on fire.
It's the Jesse Ventura minigun build of Zoe.
Yeah.
Yep. The thing about extra ammo for me is I haven't changed necessarily how I feel about it, but when I take it in the campaign. I think I used to take it earlier, and now I'm more thinking mid to late campaign when I have the lightning gun, when there are just a ton of big enemies around it. I want to keep refilling that big weapon.
Sure.
Like with Mark and Black Star's Rise and Dim Carcosa, like extra ammo was worth its weight in gold just to keep, machine gunning that lightning gun.
So then I guess my question then is, because when I'm replacing cards, I often look for things that do similar effects, and like the new card does it better or whatever. So what do you take out for extra ammunition? Do you replace like another weapon? Do you replace, since you're increasing the longevity of one firearm, do you take out another thing, like another weapon, or what? I don't even know how that would slot into a deck anymore.
I can't remember what I ended up swapping out when I took it.
It's probably just a mood. That's too specific on the game, the current game, anyway. So
some level 0 garbage. I don't know.
Thanks, Scott.
Maybe Prepared for the Worst. Actually, is it Prepared for the Worst?
Prepared is the dig for a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the one.
I think that is what I was running 2 Prepared for the Worst in that lightning gun build, and I think I dropped 1 once I got extra ammo.
Oh, see, and I never run 2 Prepared for the. But then again, you probably are playing 2-handed.
Yeah, I was playing 2-handed, and it's lightning gun, so I really want to find that lightning gun.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm only 1 of, and in just kind of a normal Guardian deck. All right, well, my one is going to be one that's a super obvious pick for everyone who's played the game now, but when the core set came out, I looked at scavenging and was like, succeed by 2? The Chaos Bag sucks. I'm never going to do that. Agnes sure as hell ain't gonna do it, and Wendy, she's okay at investigating, but I'm not gonna bank on her succeeding by 2 all the time. This card's terrible. And then Ashcan came out. And, you've got your baseball bats, you've got, I was committing magnifying glasses just to pull them back, and, I finally tried the thing out and saw, when you kind of position just a little bit, how valuable it was, and good goddamn, that card is amazing, and I was just so wrong. Now, I will say it's probably only getting better the more items we get, because good lord, what are some of the big scavenging builds now?
Grotesque Statue and Jam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Rex can recur like the disc. Right?
Yep.
If you just always avoid enemies. What else is there?
Keep going.
There was another one recently that I'm trying to think of, but I'm blanking now.
Yeah. But I think it's a card that doesn't go in everywhere that it could, but if you've got a fair few items, especially if they have a discard ability, as a fair few items that we do have, especially in Survivor, scavenging's not a bad way to go, because even if you only hit it like 2 or 3 times per game, that's still valuable to be able to play those assets back down and affect your game board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to bet that all of you thought scavenging was good off the bat.
I don't. I remember I was pretty cold on the succeed by 2 or more as well, because I remember when Rex was spoiled, I was like, "How often is that going to happen? What is this?"
We all were.
Yeah, and now it turns
we
out
were
he's
so
like
wrong.
the number 1 pick of it for investigators. So
I think at the time I was just feeling like this card just needs like time. Like right now, there's not enough stuff, and
right.
one day it'll be good. But I don't think I predicted how quickly it would be.
All right, Ian, what's your next one?
Okay, the next one is a card that I initially liked, and now I'm pretty sour on, and this one hurts my heart. But this one is Burglary, rogue card. I don't think I was like shouting it from the rooftops during the core set days, but I was more positive on it, and I included it in quite a few decks. I think part of it is I just love the theme. It's a perfect rogue card. Like, you just steal money from the location instead of getting clues, and I still think it's a good card for Rex. Like, Rex can run this all day just because of his ability, which is insane. But just in general, I find in Rogues I have a lot, especially with the Lone Wolf came out, I have a lot better resource options, and if I'm upgrading to Hot Streaks, and even before that, I just felt like I got better value just from my quiches just twice. And I didn't necessarily need more than that. And just a lot of times, just the action to play Burglary, and then the action to try to use it, and half the time I would fail the investigate test. I just think it takes up space in a deck and doesn't contribute enough.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. Like, it feels like it goes in the non-rogues that are good at investigating.
Right.
And then, because rogues themselves don't really have a need for this, so.
Well, and in a pre-Finn world, the rogues that we have don't have a whole... I mean, I guess Streetwise exists, but then you're pouring money into it. But they don't have particularly high intellect,
Right.
raw intellect. And the fact that this doesn't stack with, your lock picks or something along those lines is a little rough as well. So you're kind of relying on there to be a low shroud location that you can sit and camp on and mine, which... who's got time for that shit anymore?
Yeah.
Maybe in The Gathering.
Yeah.
Maybe also it's a factor of me playing so much solo. Like, you don't have time to sit around and mine resources. Maybe in a multiplayer game you have a bit more space, but I don't know.
Yep.
R.I.P.
right.
Burglary. Hope maybe we'll get an upgraded version one day.
Yeah, what if it was
would an
like
upgraded
after
version
you
be?
exhaust, or after you fail, investigate, exhaust, and then gain res? Like, that would be awesome. But the fact that it forces you to eat up an action just for that, it's a little rough.
Or if they turn into an event and you could steal money from other players, and it was like a trader mechanic.
Oh gosh.
That should be called petty theft, because it is being petty at that point.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I am too, actually.
Aggravated assault.
That's if you get caught.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, what you got?
All right, mine is a card that I thought lowly of, and I think most did until a new investigator by the name of Mark came around, and it became almost 100% needed. First Aid. And, now with Carcosa, I think First Aid, like, not just the fact that Mark is here, because Mark does need that healing, both damage and horror. I think even in Carcosa, this is an okay one of, in maybe a more supportive Guardian, or maybe a solo Guardian, who's not going to have much other ways to deal with all the horror that just gets slammed onto you. I kind of did I had like a category of a few cards with this as well, like Emergency Aid. I was kind of like, it's okay, but you needed a Mark, and Smoking Pipe. To me, they're all kind of in one little family, but First Aid is like the the patriarch of that family, if you will, of healing cards. And
So you're talking level 0 first aid.
Level 0 first aid, yes.
I would
I
agree
don't think
that
anyone's going to argue that level 3 is pretty solid.
I would argue that you are correct.
I like the patriarch analogy because just like the patriarch of a family, this is old and slow.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
yeah.
I'm right there with you, Scott, that I think initially just this card in general and healing in general I was kind of down on because I was just like, just soak it up and just keep going. Mm-hmm. But I think, and I'm kind of going to counter what I just said about how you need to like rush through, but I feel like the core set scenarios, specifically Midnight Mass and Devour Below, warped my sense initially of pace in the game, because those two scenarios you just need to go. You don't have time for any extraneous crap, right? Mm-hmm. And so that kind of made me think like I don't have time for first aid. But depending on scenario, but in Dunwich and Carcosa, a lot of scenarios you have time, at least a little bit of breathing room to play out some of these support cards. So I think that's what changed it for me.
Yeah.
Well. See, and I actually started very positive on this card, and I ran it in all of my Guardian decks because of that horror healing specifically. And it might just be me playing solo, but it felt like the games just got too tight, and suddenly I was like, I don't have time for this. Like, I will swap this out for emergency aid, and I will swap it out for logical reasoning eventually. But now with that upgraded one, I'm like, yeah, give me that first aid again, man. I got time for that.
Yeah.
Especially in a post-Carolyn world, where it's like, here, damage, horror, and a resource. You go on your way. Call me in the morning.
Yeah. I totally agree, though, Ian. I think that's where our initial opinions probably came from, was the core set, and it was just way too fast. And totally, Nick, being a solo player, like, some scenarios are just, I don't have a single action to misstep on doing this. Mm-hmm. But I'm finding, like, playing Carcosa and some of Dunwich, especially multiplayer, you probably have time to play down first aid and use all of its supplies before the end of the game, and still have a few extra actions where you're like, I don't know what to do, I guess I'll draw a card. So, yeah. And Mark needs it. I mean, without healing, Mark is just Mac. Yeah. So that's my card. First aid.
All right. Nick?
My second one is a card that all of us panned pretty quickly. So my second and third cards are both, but have since it's seen some use to some degree, from what I can tell. But that's Barricade. I know that when we just had the core set in the beginning of Dunwich, we were all kind of like, well, how is this useful? When are you going to do this? When do you need to sit on a location? And then, sure enough, once Min comes out, and people start playing with this idea of Min who doesn't move a lot and is still really affecting the board state and all that.
Cerebro Min.
Yeah, Barricade really seemed like it kind of found a new home in that. And that's not to say that it was totally useless before, but much like my argument for extra ammunition, Barricade's use was so narrow and so dependent on a specific board state that it was more beneficial to swap it out for a different card, a different level 0 Seeker card. That could, still protect you while you're investigating or whatever. But now,
I think what stops it from being overtly awesome is the fact that it only stops hunters. It only stops movement into your location. It doesn't stop spawning, which is also a big issue that someone who wants to avoid combat has to address.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I suppose Disc of Insomnia exists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think... to me, I think it was... I looked down on it quite a bit, and Sean, you and I made that Cerebro Min, and it's still quite a niche card, but I can definitely see times where it works.
And the fact that now there's an investigator that kind of fits with it a little bit more, like you wouldn't put it in necessarily like a Rex deck or a Daisy deck, but with Min, regardless of scenario, there's more of an argument to be made for Barricade. Mm-hmm. That's
especially since with her ability, this is more or less an unexpected courage when she throws it.
Right, yeah. and that's kind of where I'm landing with my third card as well, so when we get to there, it'll be in a similar situation.
I'm still unsure about Barricade, but I think it's partly because I just don't include it in decks. I have no experience of whether it's good or not. Like, I almost want to just keep a barricade at my side when I play and do an experiment and think while I'm playing, like, oh, would I play this barricade now? Would it save me? And see how many times that pops up during a campaign, and that will be my test of how it's doing these days.
Ian with his sideboard of 1 card.
Yep.
All right. Well, my next one, I suppose, is one that kind of got revitalized by another card simply coming out. So when Art Student first got spoiled, just this little ally that's, got a horror soak, grabs a clue, which, is cool, but it's like, God, am I going to take up an ally slot and pay 2 to get 1 damn clue? Like, just that little one shot, like, Roland takes it, and that's it. Like, that's where I sat when it first came out. And I've really come around to Art Student since Calling in Favors became a thing. I've even included her in a couple decks that don't even run Calling in Favors, just because, in solo, when a lot of those locations only have the 1 clue, and cheesing it off of a really high shroud location saves you a ton of resources and or cards. It's a solid little utility ally to have around.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay.
I feel like it took me a long time to jump on the Art Student train, but when I did, I think especially once I hit Carcosa, it's like, oh, hello, 5 shroud location, 4 shroud location, and Art Student just does so much work just in terms of saving you actions and headaches that it's just... I guess basically the moral of the story is never underestimate Tesla's actions in this game. Tesla's successes in this game. It's just, and plus, those locations that try to screw with how you investigate some way, like Art Student just nopes right out of that.
Yeah, it's 2 resources to automatically succeed an investigate test and get a little shield as well, so... Totally.
Yeah, she soaks up a Bayaki attack extremely well.
Mm-hmm. Turns out Carcosa likes horror as well, so...
Nick, how often are you running this in Roland, do you find?
My current Roland build has 2 Art Students and 2 Dr. Malisons.
With or without Charisma?
With 1 Charisma. Because then I'm also running 2 upgraded Beat Cops. So art students are usually the goal for Art Student is like, it's my early game play. I calling out favors them a couple times, and then just sack them, and then hopefully I have Malison out, and then I just pop a Beat Cop mid to late game, and I'm usually set.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you kind of ran over it, but having a little bit of horror soak in someone with low sanity cannot be overstated. And
it's huge.
Sometimes I don't even use that 1 health. It's like, I don't care about the health. You are 2 sanity that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
All right. Back to Ian.
Alrighty, let's see what I have next on the menu. Okay. So the next one is a card that I initially was skeptical of, and that I now am more positive on and have used it more often, and that is Bandolier. Yeah. So, for those who don't remember, this basically just gives you an additional hand slot for weapons, and it's not a card that I necessarily use in a lot of investigators, but specifically I'm thinking about Guardians. Once you start getting to that mid-range, like, I like having the option of having my lightning gun out, but then also having a machete out or something, which is how I was running Mark a lot for, from Phantom onwards, I believe. And just having that flexibility that I don't need to use my lightning gun on the smaller enemies, and I can just stab them to death and then still have my lightning gun for the bigger enemies.
I actually find Bandolier, I play it in the Lightning Gun version of Zoe.
Oh, sure.
And I play 2 of. It stops you from losing all your stuff when you Lightning Gun. So And honestly, if you've got...
Well, what's all your stuff? What else does she want to hold on to? Just keep her machete?
Yeah. The other weapon when your lightning gun goes away. I'm half joking, but I'm not joking. Like,
it totally makes sense.
If I have a 45 and a machete out, and then I lightning gun, and then I use the lightning gun, and there's still something left, however that happens, right. I still have the machete. So
well, and even after the lightning gun goes away, you're still going to be drawing enemies.
Yeah.
You know? And so might as well save yourself the headache of having to play a weapon later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It really came about through all these situations that I kept running into. Like, I'd have the machete and the lightning gun, and I'd think, oh, well, do I play the lightning gun down now, but then I'm going to need to use it? Or do I play the machete down now, but then if something big comes out, I'm going to play down the lightning gun? Like, it was just all this kind of, like, hand slot gymnastics. I'm like, screw it, bandolier. And that's kind of how that came about.
This card kind of sits, and this is purely for me being a solo player, but this card sits in the same spot as extra ammunition, where I clearly see its use, but I'm also at the point where I'm like, I'm not going to use it that often in my solo builds because card space is limited, and I need tools to cover everything, and this is a little too narrow of a use for a solo Guardian build, in my experience. But in a 2+ player game, I can definitely see where this would be a necessary item, especially in the sleight of hand decks.
Yeah, I find too if I'm building a 4-player super aggressive, like let's say a Mark or Roland, like a super fighty deck, sometimes I'll throw in a Bandolier just because I might have 2 weapons and want to play a magnifying glass, or I might just want to play 3 weapons, you know, like, it's more of a cheeky one, but yeah.
It's too bad that it takes a body slot so that you can't have like 2 bandoliers crossed across your chest.
Yeah.
And then have a shotgun and a lightning gun.
You may attach a second bandolier to this bandolier. It is considered in play. You know, like,
there should just be a bandolier slot.
When we eventually get the item that gives you an extra body slot that goes in your hand,
yes,
then you trade back.
Now my brain's hurting.
Inception.
I still want the permanent morbid obesity. You now have 2 body slots, but you reduce your agility to 0.
See, and I'm picturing like a Yoda in the backpack sort of thing. Like that's your extra body slot. Is the guy on your back.
All right, so then I think that takes us to Scott.
Yeah, I guess I'll pull up my thing so I can actually get my next card. Oh yeah, this one I'm super excited about. I thought this card was hot garbage, and some people would still argue that it is. I think now that a leveled up version has come out, and the deck archetype has gotten a bit support, it might be okay now, and super fun, and that is Opportunist.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I agree.
So trying to, like, and I'm not, like, I would never take this into, like, expert.
No.
But playing on normal, like, or standard, like, the win by 2 deck is actually really fun. And once you get, like, both Opportunists in your hand, especially the upgraded ones, like, you're just committing them every single test, and then you draw the tentacle eventually, and you feel sad, and you usually resign at that point. And I'm not saying that this is a great card. I'm saying that this card now functions, whereas before it did not.
Call me crazy, but when we occasionally play 3-player games with my wife and my brother-in-law, and we generally play on easy because that's their preferred difficulty, and he plays Rex, and I say, put Opportunist in there. Throw 2 Opportunists in there. And I actually do like this card. Like, again, it's not winning games, but it functions. You're right.
Yep.
I realize that I kind of have like a mental deficiency where when bad aberrant luck happens, it sticks with me a little bit harder than it does most people.
Yeah, you kind of do.
I know that about myself.
I know you do that.
But yeah, man, the Chaos Bag can still take this combo apart so easily.
Well,
but do you think that for the most part you get enough uses out of it before it crumbles that it becomes worth it?
Yes. If you have the upgrade, especially the upgraded ones, like basically you play this deck so you can get enough XP to upgrade into the level 2 Opportunist, and then the deck really starts to sing. Once you get them both in your hand, you pretty much just commit them to every test, both of them, every single time, and you just constantly pass with crazy amounts of everything.
Well, and even if it only recurs once in a scenario, I still feel like it was worth it.
And what's the card that kind of shields it now a little bit? Is it Daring Maneuver?
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Daring Maneuver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I as the rogue player, I'm still not there with Opportunist yet. I don't know. I agree with you that it functions. I get what you're saying, Scott, that it's not some stellar card. I think for me, I guess part of it too is the skill slot for rogues. I am in love with Watch This. I really like quick thinking, and so it's hard for me. So I think it would have to be something like you're saying, Scott, where I just all out commit to that approach. And
where's the double or nothing love?
Whereas you have to. I do like double or nothing, but that one's more.
Then you could return
particular
Opportunist to your hand twice.
Pull out another Opportunist from your collection, put it in your hand.
Yo, dog, I heard you like Opportunists.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I need to build that buy 2 deck and see how it goes.
It's
Scott, was it Skids that you ended up kind of piloting this in?
Yeah, I only played a couple games. I really have to take him. I promised Delarp guy in the chat that I would play a couple campaigns of Skids because I rag on Skids a lot, and
as you do.
Yeah, I mean, like, some of it isn't jest. Some of it is actual things I disagree with right. Like him. But yeah, this is a fun deck. It's fun to play, and once it starts working, you're like, woohoo! Look at how much I'm winning, right? And like you said, Ian, it has to go in this deck archetype. This is not something you just throw one card in usually. It's more so this archetype of +2, but Opportunist is kind of that linchpin card that we saw in the core set. That was like, oh, this deck is going to exist at some point, and I think it has enough support now. It does.
And it's weird that it was weird with the level 0 Opportunists that, like, we had, even after the core set, we were getting more cards that said succeed by 2 or more, and level 0 Opportunist was still succeed by 3 or more, and that was what was really like, why? Like, why wasn't it just a 2 or more to begin with? That's my only real sticking point with it, is that it's 2 experience per card just to get it to the same level that every other rogue card of this archetype is in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I still run it.
I have wanted to experiment with a 2-handed min rogue combo, and then you're getting the extra icon for Opportunist. Yeah, that's a build I still need to try.
All right, I expect a report back on the next episode. Nick, I think that's passing to you now.
All right, what am I at? Oh yeah, my third card, and this was the only other one I could really come up with.
Is it a spoon?
Is it? Yes. No, it is not. It is Knife.
That's on my list too.
I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
Yeah. So, Knife is one that we had quite a long discussion in an early episode of this podcast, talking about how bad of a weapon it is, because it's just +1 combat. That's it. If you want to get rid of it, then it's decent. And I even remember saying that I can see this becoming good when, in some sort of weird scavenging build. And of course, at that time, we didn't think highly of scavenging either, like Sean said. But lo and behold, Yorick comes into play, and suddenly Knife is like, that's his signature weapon, basically. Yeah, it's like, now, I don't include it in any other deck, honestly. Like, I never put it anywhere, but if I'm building a Yorick deck, 2 of Knife in there. For sure. And it's interesting that I kind of love that about this game, where cards that we think are bad at one point don't necessarily become good, but just with a certain investigator, suddenly they become super useful. And that's exactly where, in my opinion, Knife has kind of landed.
Yeah, I mean,
The power of synergy.
It really is Yorick that brought it back up. I mean, I still see some people who are like, oh, I throw, one in Daisy, sometimes it helps. And I'm like, no, you're wrong.
No. Daisy has better things than Knife.
You can. You can, but you're wrong. And
yeah.
It is, I would like to say, it is still a bad card. Yorick takes this bad card and makes it insane because of what he can do with it.
Agreed. Right, because he negates its big downside. Because the big downside is if you want this to be a workable action compression weapon, you got to get rid of it. And then he's like, no, I don't care. I'll just play it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And then remember, Nick, actually the first time I remember kind of turning around on Knife is when we workshopped that gym scavenging build, because I was looking at scavenging, your grotesque statues. And then I'm like, yeah, Jim's at a 3. He could make Knife workable. When I can't find those shrivelings or I don't feel like wasting a charge, and then it went in, and it actually performed fairly well, so, yeah.
But even in that build, don't you find that Jim has better tools for dealing with enemies than Knife?
Oh, yeah, I mean, he can take 5, level 0 cards from anywhere.
Right.
Dude could take Machete. It was just kind of an interesting thought experiment in Jim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the longer Knife, yeah. Knife plus. Yeah, and that's not to say that Yorick can't take better cards that deal with enemies, but it's the fact that, like, exactly what you said. Yeah, exactly, yeah. It just cuts that penalty, like, in half, basically, because suddenly it's just all I gotta do is succeed now, and boom, I'm good to go again. So.
Yorick is Johnny Knife.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Remember Johnny Knife?
I do. I'm so happy that someone else said it, not me. Because back on that Knife episode, I'm already tripped on memory lane, guys. Back on that Knife episode, I remember going, I can't wait to get an email from Johnny Knife saying how it's so good.
The Knife apologist.
Yorick comes into play. Yorick, Johnny Knife. William Johnny Knife Yorick.
God. All right, well, my next card is kind of moving in the opposite direction. It's one when I saw it previewed, I was like, oh man, that's so baller! And then I tried it out in a couple builds. I'm like, oh god, this really doesn't do what I thought it would. And that would be ritual candles. So, this is one where, if you remember, it's a one-cost mystic asset. You put it in a hand slot, and then when you pull a bad stuff token during a skill test, you get +1 for that test. Which, it was in the same box as Jim, and Jim already kind of smooths out the chaos bag. So, I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, that makes Skulls a +1. And, it does. It does do that, but I just don't feel like it ever pulled the weight that I want a hand slot to pull.
Yeah.
Like, in most cases, I'd rather have a knife or a flashlight, or something that's specific to what I'm trying to do that just gives me a more efficient benefit. Have any of you guys ever even played Ritual Candles?
I haven't, because I'm scared away by the hand slot aspect of it. Like, I keep looking at it and going, I don't like that. But then again, at the same time, like especially with a level 0 gym build, what all are you putting in your hand slot? Flashlights?
Well, that's kind of what saves it, is that Mystic just has the ability to offload things that would normally go in hands to arcane slots and, to wacky events. So it's better in a Mystic deck, but it's still, I don't know, I've never felt like the +1 was enough of a difference made on those bad tokens that I felt good about having it out.
I totally agree.
I completely agree. This is a card that when I first read it, I was like, hey, this is really good and efficient and fits with Jim and everything like that, and it just lackluster at best. Like,
yeah. I think I was at the same place which a lot of people were, where you see, oh, it's doing stuff with the bad stuff tokens, Jim, and I feel like he's probably the last Mystic I would take it in. Because if you're already, thinking Carcosa, you have 3 skulls, that's getting down to 0 and it becomes a +1, like Sean said. But how often are you testing where you need a +1 to succeed? Like, you shouldn't be unless you're desperate. And so then it's basically just the other, whatever the other token is. And yeah, even for the other mystics, I don't know, there's other stuff that is better.
Yeah, it was funny because that was the thought that was just kind of half baked. Like, if I had followed that thought through to completion, it would have been a better thought, because it's like, yeah, it turns them into +1s, but they're already zeros, dude. Why do you need them to be +1s?
Exactly.
Sean, did you run ritual candles in Scavenging Gym?
I did, and the whole thought there was it's another thing I could potentially pitch and pull back, but it's still just...
Oh. And see, I was just thinking getting that extra +1 could just help to trigger scavenging.
Oh, there's that old garage door again. Couldn't get on the mute this time. Sorry, everyone. Really, you guys are just gonna let that hang there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
just for your.
But you know what I mean? Like, because scavenging needs a success by 2 or more to trigger, and so that's the only thing. That was the only thing that I thought about with this, is that turning that spell from a 0 to a +1 could potentially help with that scavenging bit. But then again, if you're trying to trigger it anyway,
that was my thought too.
Yeah.
Ooh, what about a Gym Ritual Candles Opportunist deck?
Ooh. Now we got it. We broke it.
Okay,
guys.
so if you're banking on succeeding by 3 or more when you pull bad stuff, I think you're planning to fail.
But only a bad stuff token that's already at 0. Like, it can't be a -2 or whatever.
Planning to fail, so we'll throw some survivor cards in. And then...
Why not just throw burglary in there too, and we could make a deck out of all our bad cards?
Well, I mean, we could probably throw a singleton copy of most of the bad cards we've mentioned into Gym. That old Dunwich Splash is nice and helpful.
World's worst deck. So what's your strategy? I don't know. Fail.
Pray.
I'm
gonna light this candle and see what happens.
Throw up a barricade, light a candle.
All right, let's go one more round. Ian, what's your last card?
All right, I'm glad I saved this one for last then, because this is probably the biggest turnaround for me. A little guy by the name of Renfield. This is one that when it was I first saw it, I was like, nah, I'm gonna pass. Like, I don't really want to put Doom on there and worry about taking it off. Like, how many resources am I gonna get anyway? Like, any deck I want to take them in, I'll probably take some other ally that's better. And I was completely and utterly wrong. Like, he is so... I used them in solo Safina through Carcosa, which was my first successful solo Carcosa campaign. And I would rate him as the MVP of that deck. Like, just... He's slightly scenario dependent, because if the scenario has agendas with low numbers, you can't use them as much. But that doesn't tend to be a big proportion. That's like 2 scenarios in Carcosa that I could think of where I didn't use him much. And the rest, he is just raking in illegal, insane amounts of money.
Did you guys do the same thing I did when you first read him and you missed the May ad Doom?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So when he first came out, I'm like, God, I'm all for Doom play and just, fortune favors the bold, but goddamn, like, adding a Doom to him every time, like, it's just... when are you going to make your money back? You're just going to bust every agenda you ever play. But then I read him, because, I made a career out of reading 70% of cards and leaving out the one salient point. And then you see that May. So, most of the time the strategy is to just let him ride at 1 or 2 Doom.
Right.
Generally, if you've got calling in favors or some way to deal horror, some sure way where you can dump him before he pops the agenda. Like, oh God, I can't even describe how many resources I have pulled off of Renfield's back.
Yeah.
So, have you ever done it where you do his ability, you exhaust him, you place a Doom on him, you gain resources, then you calling in favors, pop him back to your hand, pull your other Renfield out, exhaust him, gain resources? Have you ever done that? You've daisy chained it? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so one of the first builds I had of him where he just did major amounts of work was an Ashcan build, because that Ashcan build took Inspiring Presence when it came out. Mm-hmm. And also one of its first upgrades was Scrapper, because this Ashcan build was specifically going to do a lot of fighting in this campaign. And so many little combos with Renfield. So the allies I ran in that one were 2... so it was Peter Sylvester, Renfield, and 2, or no, so maybe it's just 1 lab assistant, with Inspiring Presence. So you exhaust Renfield, spend down for your fire axe, you nail an enemy, then you exhaust Renfield and get resources back, spend down again, hit an enemy again, then you can duke him. Or if you need to pay for something expensive, you use your Renfield, fight with Duke, use Inspiring Presence, ready Renfield up, get more resources.
Dirty.
Yeah.
I like to imagine the coins that you get from Renfield have cockroaches on them.
More than likely. The thing I like with the Safina usage is not only, we haven't mentioned his +1 will, but it's super useful for certain investigators. Safina.
I'm sorry, it's useful for every investigator.
True.
Will is just a thing you need.
But it's incredibly valuable for someone like Safina who wants to do mystic stuff but needs some more willpower. But then she also, you're pretty much going to see Moonlight Ritual at least once or twice because she draws that big opening hand. You might be able to put it under your card and use Painted World. So, I never was stuck in a situation where the agenda advanced when I didn't want it to, because I was able to kind of manage things and take it off when I needed to.
Oh, yeah, and then I also had him in my Agnes build because... of course, Carolyn wanted Peter Sylvester, so Agnes lent him for the time. And so I went with Renfield and Agnes. And when you're doing like Agnes Forbidden Axe, having another way to spend down and then boost back up resources, it's so juicy.
Yeah, and I like that he's 2 cost. It's cheaper than, say someone like Milan. Not saying that Renfield is straight better than Milan, but it's nice. Usually when someone gives you resources, they're going to cost a lot to offset it, but Renfield's only 2. And soaking 2 damage is good for a lot of these squishy mystics.
Yep. I think once he might be a little bit scary because playing with Doom is definitely something you have to have a little bit of gumption to do. But once you learn the rhythm of when you play him, when you exhaust him, how to pop him when you need to pop him, he's just such a good freaking ally.
Yep.
I'm done gushing. Thanks, Ian, for putting him on the show so we can talk about Renfield, because he's my favorite.
I know. I was mostly thinking of this whole show topic just so I could gush about Renfield.
All right, so then I think we'll move on to Scott's last one.
All right, so since we were looking at Core and Dunwich, I think there's a card that came out late Dunwich that we all kind of... I remember talking about it, and we all kind of had like, oh, yeah, maybe if some more cards that affect this come out or something. And then we got Carcosa, and that is Fine Clothes. Because that went from like, I guess there's like extracurricular activity, there's someone you could parlay or something, and then Carcosa shows up and you go to the Last King and you pretty much have to be dressed nicely. Same thing with the Poltergeist and stuff. Not just that, I didn't realize at the time how big having a 1-cost 1/1 soak in a slot that's not often used, like the body slot, how insanely good that is. Like, sometimes it's just like, I'm getting hit, and I'm like, well, I really don't need my Fine Clothes anymore, and it takes half or most of the hit. So
it's like a dodge.
Yeah. It's a dodge that sits on you, and you can pay for it whenever, and then it gives you a slight advantage, and then it leaves. But yeah.
I also do enjoy the fact that I'm pretty sure this is the one card in the entire pool that has the clothing trait. I can't wait to see the expansion of the clothing. The clothing trait.
Does Leather Coat have it?
I was just going to ask that.
Oh, does it? I probably should.
Let's look it up.
Probably should. It
Maybe
does
we'll
not.
get.
It's an item.
Oh my god! You know
armor.
who clothing?
Yeah, armor.
Really? Armor,
It's
not
armor.
clothing. Okay.
I didn't
You know
know I
who
actually own a piece of armor in real life, but I guess I
Yeah, exactly. It's a very well-made leather coat.
You know who the clothing trait should matter to? Diana Stanley. Because in her backstory,
This is a stretch.
No, it's not. It's not. Her backstory is that
So
she's
my
a new
card,
business
my
owner.
last card.
Shut up, Nick. You don't have another card.
I actually do.
know it. Okay.
I just
No,
thought
but
of
her backstory is that she opened a business, and that's how she got involved with the lodge. And her business is a high-end clothing store. So yeah, there you go.
Did you just completely make that up right now?
No, it's called Huntress Clothing or
I
something
thought
like that.
for sure after the second interruption he would just give up. But I mean, kudos to you for sticking to it, Chuck.
I checked the only.
You guys definitely underestimate my resolve when it comes to Dynasty.
It is the only card with a clothing trait. I just checked.
Yeah.
Wow. We need some Explorer clothes next cycle.
I hope so.
Fancy hat.
All right, Nick, what is your fourth card?
My last card is one that I remember specifically I was against, and I don't know. I know for sure that at least one of the other hosts was totally pro this card, and I was like, no. This is bad news, and you do not run this card, and if you run this card, I'm going to get upset. Well, and then we did an Iron Man, and this card ended up pulling its weight and then some. And I am, of course, talking about Delve Too Deep.
Yeah.
I was super anti-Delve Too Deep when it first came out. And to be honest, I still don't run it in my own Mystic decks when I do make them, just because I'm like, what if I pull the super shitty card? Like, what if I pull the one that's going to break my game?
But what if you don't?
But what if but it's me, though, and that card always gravitates to the top of the deck right after I spend the resources for Delve. But in our Iron Man campaign, I think we netted like 6 or 8 extra experience throughout the whole campaign.
At least.
Yeah, with 2 people running 2 copies of Delve Too Deep. So I can definitely agree that it is a powerful card. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, maybe it should cost 2. Maybe it should be like a 1 experience card. Maybe it shouldn't be a level 0. But
I was honestly afraid after Matt was peeking over our shoulder that campaign that
there
he
would
was
be an
going
errata.
There would be an errata in the next FAQ.
Yeah, Delve Too Deep is now a 2 experience exceptional card.
Because I think his biggest beef with it is the thing that you do where you cheese it where everyone else resigns and you can still get the experience if only one person's pulling the card. I think that's his main problem with it.
But we never even did that. I think we may have had one person resign early, and that was. I don't think we did it too often. If we did,
we did it a couple
feel
times. Where it would be me and Casey staying.
The house always wins. Mm-hmm. And
yes.
Yeah. Was that it? It was definitely the house always wins.
I know we did it there for sure. Yeah.
I know we tried to do it right near the end.
We played like friggin' 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, and I think the difference there too. I mean, we're 4 people who play the game a lot, who are playing on standard difficulty, who compared decks, built them together as a team, knew the scenarios inside and out. Of course, Delve Too Deep is going to be overpowered because we're negating a lot of the downside of everything else in the game. But like,
and originally I hadn't even thought about like that level of play. Like, when this card was originally spoiled, it was still to the point where like I couldn't imagine going into a scenario not blind. You know what I mean? Like, so
or knowing
that makes
every
a huge
resolution and all the
counter
cards and I think
this is definitely a lot scarier when everything is unknown. But
I think it's absolutely
workable.
fine the way it is. But
fantastic. All right, well, I'll go ahead and round us out here with an appropriate closer, I feel. So when this card came out, I thought it was cute, thought it was flavorful. Never assumed I would actually play it.
And that was Agnes?
And quiet you. And that is, of course, I'm Outta Here.
Oh, yeah! I love that card!
So, definitely thought it was fun. But at the point that it was spoiled, I'm like, why? Like, if I'm gonna resign, let's try to get an XP. Let's just try to win. Like, I'm not gonna put a card in my deck so that I can be assured I lose a little bit more lightly. Like, bleh. But that being said, there are a fair few scenarios where the distance between resigning and where you end up, halfway through the scenario, I mean, there's a gauntlet to run. The first time I turned around on this is I substituted out my manual dexterity for I'm Outta Here in a Jenny build through Dunwich. And in that in Lost in Time and Space, when you get to the end and you bust through the 2 acts, and then you've got to make it out. That's sitting in my hand, and I'm going, oh, I just win now.
Yep. And
that's fun. But at the end of the day, it helps you avoid trauma, which for everyone but Calvin is something you're probably going to avoid. And it makes you kind of feel a little safe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've turned around on I'm Out of Here. Did not like it at first. I liked it. I thought it was cute, but I did not think it was an effective card. But it's
since this card has come out, any deck that I can take this, and even if manual dexterity would be useful, I'm still like, I'd rather have I'm Out of Here than manual dexterity, like 100%.
And with Obel for Rogue specifically, this takes on even more value that you cannot get defeated. So, I will say that I like this more in Dunwich than Carcosa, because I feel like there's more scenarios in Carcosa that just lock you in and you can't resign. Far more so than Dunwich, but I still like it. It's a useful card.
The only time in Carcosa that I can think of that I made use of this was in The Last King, because the resign is on the entrance to the mansion.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Otherwise, it seems like Carcosa is more of a one-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Where are the other places you can resign in Carcosa?
Know,
can you resign in Oath?
Yeah.
At the very end.
I don't remember if it's an exact resign action or if it's just when you're here, advance the act. I guess I don't remember.
It is a resign, but I can't remember if you have to be at that location to use it. It's like if there's no ready enemy. I can't remember the exact working.
It's something. Yeah, it's some weird enemy thing. Yep. So it gains it when there's no. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Pallid, you can't resign. Phantom, you can't resign.
You can resign from Echoes, though, right? But I mean, it's Echoes. How often are you gonna?
Right. Yeah, you can, but then you're losing the scenario essentially.
Curtain Call, you can until the end.
And that is.
That's not. I mean, that's a good way to get around that friggin' ooze.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another one where it's when the stranger is defeated, isn't it?
Right.
Gains
where
resign.
You already have to have gotten there.
Yeah, so there's still things you have to do in order to trigger it. So really, yeah, like I said, I think The Last King is the only scenario that has it where this would be straight up beneficial.
Oh, interesting. All right, well in Dunwich, and I'm going to go ahead and assume Forgotten Age is going to be a little bit better in that regard, but who knows? We could get trapped in a hidden temple or something, and Olmec will try to eat us.
Well, 1 second. Let's see. It says play only if there's a scenario card with a resign ability in play. So if a card gains the resign ability, does that mean you can just use it then?
So yeah,
regardless of what else
if all the
says?
enemies at that location are gone or exhausted, then you could use it.
Then it gains the resign, and then
So then you could resign from this, like the prisoner cells or something.
But see, that still requires a player get up there and deal with any enemies that are there. Yeah. And that's where it kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
But yeah. In Dunwich, there's a lot more like, here's a location, it's just sitting there with resign,
Right.
So,
yes.
So yeah, I'm out of here. Maybe scenario specific, but not bad. And I feel like Rogue, it's best in Rogue, obviously, because you've got adaptable. So you can swap this in and out. When you have knowledge of the scenario, whether or not it's actually going to be something you can use. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's move it on. We've got one voicemail item to catch up on. So, God, I'm always talking when that happens, so I can't edit it out. So we're just going to ride this through. We've got James, who's got a question about collecting. So I'll go ahead and pop this item in the old chat here for you, if I can find it. Where'd that go? I think it's in my downloads folder. One would think.
You know what card has gotten worse since Core is Sean.
Agree. He needs a buff. All right, here we go.
Hey, so I've been listening to your podcast for basically since it started, and we finally got I guess I should cover my name. I'm James. I'm never online in time to be live for the recording, but we've got a group of 6 people meeting pretty regular in near Sarasota in Florida, and only 2 of us have collections. So I was wondering what you guys' thoughts were on how to build investigator decks for 6 players out of only 2 collections. part of the problem is that the second collection is mostly incomplete with only 2 cores and 2 deluxe expansions to have investigators to play with. So, given those restrictions, what would you guys do for investigators? And as further discussion, how would you convince a new player who's showing up every week to actually jump in and buy their first score? I guess, thanks for listening. Hope to get a reply at some point.
Is he saying that we're late on the replies? Come on, James, cut us some slack.
So I'm going to answer the second question first. I think the good strategy to getting other people to jump in and buy their own collection, first what you do is you build them an optimized deck. You include the unexpected courages, you give them the emergency caches, and you make a point of letting them know that's what you've done. You let them play 1 or 2 games with that, and then you withhold. Then you never give them the unexpected courage or emergency cache again. And just always harp on how much better the game would be if they were able to bring their own.
Throw a couple knives in their Wendy deck.
The classic give them a little taste tactic. Huh?
Yeah,
that's an old sales strategy where you hand them the product, and then as you're talking to them about it, you take it away from them, and that triggers a response in them to then want to buy if they're actually interested, to buy it back from you.
Your first hit's free, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Building.
So,
Ugh.
yeah.
Well, I was going to say that his question really is, how do you build for 3 players with 1 full collection? But if one of the collections is incomplete, that's going to raise some issues. My suggestion is, with the incomplete collection, build 3 Dunwich investigators, because their splash is going to be a little bit more specific to whatever your strategy is for those gators, and they're going to be using primarily cards from a single class, so that's going to ease up that shared card pool a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in general, I would think you would have to build more specialized so that every investigator is not trying to draw on the same cards. And also maybe thinking about some of those more cute tricksy decks that are going to use those cards that aren't often used. Looking at you, opportunist build.
Yeah. Or a skids build, am I right?
Oh.
No, he's going to take all the cards away from Guardian.
Yeah. Oh, can't have that, yeah.
I think you'll find yourself using Knife a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not using it, but including it.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is for most builds, there are a couple staples, especially out of the core, that just most decks want.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there are any specific subs that you'd recommend for your unexpected courages, your emergency caches, the kind of basic cards that you see so commonly?
I think emergency.
Well, if they're running with 2 cores per collection and they have 2 collections, they have enough caches and courages for everybody, right?
Well, I think he said they were building for 6 people out of 2 cores, out of 2 collections, one of which was not complete. So,
so you think they only have 1 core?
You're kind of up against it in that situation, I think. But
so I think you just learn to deal with maybe everyone gets 1 emergency cache, and maybe give the Guardians the second one just because their stuff is expensive. Nick, I think you hit the nail on the head.
I'm gonna hit my head on the
nail.
I've heard that's effective.
If you build because I think he said he has the deluxes. So if you build a Mark deck, he's all Guardian. Build a Rex deck, he's all Seeker. Who would be a third?
Survivor.
Ashcan.
Or an Ashcan.
Yeah, and that's a really good beginner deck too. That's mostly Survivor. So there you got 3 classes that kind of will just take all stuff from themselves and splash a little bit, but won't contradict each other a bit. As far as the unexpected courages, I think everyone gets 1, but you find stuff instead of Mark getting 2 unexpected courages, you do 1 of unexpected courage, 1 overpower, and so you use those other neutrals to you choose which one is going to be most likely used.
Yeah, and I think also for the neutral skills, you're going to probably need to delve more into the maybe more rarely used class-specific skills.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not going manual dexterity, maybe you're going survival instinct, maybe you're drawing on something like inspiration or leadership and guardian. You're kind of splashing those in so that you're not using up all the neutral skills all the time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you need to cheat and sub in a couple of higher XP cards just to round a deck out, like no one's gonna knock down your door.
Right.
I can't tell you how many neutral skills I've turned into fine clothes by just slipping a piece of paper in the front and writing fine clothes. Like,
Scott doesn't have any manual dexterities anymore.
Yeah, that's green. No one plays green. Yeah. So I think you'd build the 2 decks from the incomplete collection, or build the 3 first from there, and then see what you have left from the full collection, because that'll be easier to build from as well. But I think, some of those people, if they've been coming for weeks and weeks, be like, guys, like, we have 6 people and 2 people are buying into this game. Like, can someone else please help out? I don't think that's.
But I still think it's totally doable, because I build totally viable decks for 4 players consistently. Mm-hmm. And in this situation, they're building 3 from a single collection. And I mean, having the deluxes and having access to the investigators helps out a lot. Like, imagine if they just had the core set and just Mythos packs. Like, that would be an interesting way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks James for calling in.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the question. If anyone else would like to call in, always our line is open to you. Please call in at 203-493-6984. So guys, let's move it into a high and tight tentacle time. Nick, what's grabbing you?
Other than Young Frankenstein, which opens next week, so that has literally been commanding my time. The only other stuff that I've had time to do was I got a couple of messages regarding my Winter Winds campaign, my custom Arkham Horror 5 scenario campaign. And I was like, it made me think, like, how close was Scenario 3 to being released? So I went back and looked at it, and I was like, oh, turns out it's pretty damn close. So I sent that out for some playtests for some other people, got some good responses back. V on our Discord had some good input, and Mr. Trench had a lot of great input for me as well, and fine-tuned it from there. And now that is released as of, I think, last Saturday, a week ago. So Scenario 3, The Forgotten Village, is now available for download from ArkhamCentral.com. Definitely check it out. That one is one that, like, Frozen Tracks was kind of like my breakout scenario, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. This is the one that has taken the most work, and I'm incredibly proud of where it is. So I would love it if you could check it out, and then leave a comment.
Is that the one you and I played most recently?
Yes.
The boss monster, more or less?
Mm-hmm, it is. And it's been retooled a little bit from that, but it's still, like, the theme and everything. Like, it still plays almost exactly the same, but there was some wording changes that had to happen, and there was some more fine-tuning. But other than that, the only other thing I did is, and this will probably segue into Sean, maybe, but someone's been playing Bloodborne, and so then that got me back into Bloodborne, and I just beat the DLC earlier this week. I'm losing track of days. God, this play is just draining my mentality. So I beat Bloodborne, the DLC, earlier this week, and I just, as of yesterday, I read an 89-page plot summary, not synopsis, but an in-depth lore analysis of the game of Bloodborne. Because a lot of that game's lore, like, there's some that's explicit, but there's a lot in that lore that is implicit or that's open to interpretation. And so it creates a lot of moments where I'm talking to Sean about the story of a situation, and then I'm like, but wait a minute, is that right? Like, that seems weird. How does this connect? And then I will go and research it and be like, oh, turns out we don't really know how these dots are connected. It's just the community coming to their own summations. And that's
because in that game you get more story from the trophy achievement announcements than you do from anything that's explicitly given to you in the game.
Right. It's very narrative through the environment. Like, you got to pay attention to what the environments look like, what the enemies are, like what enemies have on them. Not necessarily what they drop, but what they're wearing, how they're fighting, how they look, how they're acting, stuff like that. Like, you really, if you want the narrative of Bloodborne, you have to be 100% like paying attention to the game as you play it. And that's something that, like, after Sean and I will beat a section, I will explain to him what I know of the plot of that area. and that sort of thing. But it is a phenomenal game. I will always stand by that.
We always have a good time at post-boss Nick tells a story time.
Yeah, it's Nick explains Bloodborne poorly. But I should have a link to that that plot summation, but I don't, sadly. But it did connect some dots that I didn't expect, and it also even outlined a few dots that I didn't realize were there. So I'm looking forward to getting some more of that information to you, Sean, and to actually getting you past the boss that you were stuck on the last time we talked.
Yeah, I'm fine with kind of the slow progress I've been making. It's been getting me off my PS4 a little bit more, which is kind of a good thing now that the weather's finally turning. So, yeah, I'm quite enjoying Bloodborne. I've kind of worked past the hump. I still have moments of frustration, and there are freaking moves that bosses have that are just so goddamn cheap. It's unreal, but you know, I've gotten better with it. It's actually helped me deal with my frustration problems a little bit.
Therapy through Bloodborne.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Tentacle time. I've been playing Arkham and Bloodborne for the most part. A little bit of Lord of the Rings splashed in there. Oh yeah, and I suppose I have gone through and finished my rewatch of Westworld in anticipation of that new premiere coming out. And holy shit, when you know some of the plot twists ahead of time, it changes that show.
Yeah. Some of the conversations, hey, like even just the wording of phrases, you're like, oh my god, it was right in front of me the whole time.
Like, and your concept of timing just completely changes the tenor of things. Oh god, I felt like I loved my first watch through of that show. The second watch through was better.
I'm still baffled by people who don't like that show, but whatever.
Right?
It doesn't look like it.
That's how I feel about those people.
It doesn't look like
they're hosts.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, what's grabbing you?
Well, Nick, I understand why you didn't mention this because you're probably busy with the play. But new Hearthstone expansion came out.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah, I was super worried about this one because like a lot of the cards they were previewing, I was like really lukewarm on. I was like, oh, this is okay. And then it came out, and I'm like, okay, no, this is a blast. Like, it's more than the sum of its parts. Plus, there was the huge rotation. Like, every year, they basically kick out a bunch of cards. And so, yeah, it's been super fun.
And I honestly haven't logged a bunch of time with it. I maybe played 6 games since the expansion came out. What I played has been interesting. It's nice to see that Q block isn't as big of a threat as I expected it to remain. Like, it still is, but there are so many other decks out there now that are able to deal with that. So it's kind of a relief.
And they introduced these 2 new cards that basically, if you get a bonus from the start of the game if you build your entire deck with just even cards or just odd cards, and that's been pretty cool to mess around with.
And I was super and I haven't tried it enough to provide any input, but I was very much on the path of that's not that big of a shakeup. Those. But from what I'm seeing, it seems like I was wrong. So I'm happy to be wrong in this case.
Everyone was wrong. I listened to a few podcasts, and there's professional players saying, "Nah, it won't matter." And 2 days in, it's if you don't have these 2 cards, you shouldn't play Hearthstone. Speaking of which, my last competitive card game essentially died this week. Star Wars is now done.
Oh yeah.
Last pack came out and everything. So I'm a little bit sad, and so I was like, oh man, I need another competitive game and not Hearthstone. I want a face-to-face player game. And I was like, okay, I want a game that is cheaper because I have a kid now. And I want a game that doesn't die, like Game of Thrones 1, Conquest, Star Wars. I'm getting pretty tired of getting into dying games. And I want something that's super balanced and well maintained and stuff. And so I fell on chess. So I'm starting to really get into.
I was about to say what possible game hits all those boxes. Okay.
That was the most satisfying left turn ever.
No doubt.
So I've started getting into chess a lot. So watching videos, studying it, renting books from the library on it and stuff like that. And I'm not very good right now. I'm decent. I played a bit in high school, but I think this is going to be my competitive game my competitive in-person game going forward, because I know nothing's going to rotate, nothing's going to get nerfed. There's going to be no erratas.
Turns out the queen's out this year, guys.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you're ending up at chess, whereas like you almost would think that would have been your starting point.
It was one of my starting points, and then I was telling my wife this. I'm like, Maura, it's been in front of me my whole life. Like, how have I not done this? It doesn't look like anything to me. You know, like it just.
Yeah. I used to play chess a lot too, like back in high school, and I haven't played it at all in the last few years. Mm-hmm. So I will look forward to playing a game of chess with you or two the next time that we're together.
Yeah, for sure. And like I used to dabble for years, but I'm going to, get registered with the FIDE or whatever, and like go to tournaments in my city and stuff. Wow. So.
Oh shit! I'm not looking forward to playing chess with you the next time that we get together.
I'm getting that into chess. I'm not like, I guess I'll buy a chessboard. I'm like getting nerdy chess.
You guys have met Scott before, right?
Yeah. I'm really gonna min-max my chessboard. Yeah. Anyways, so that's it.
So, do you guys think castling needs an errata?
The pawn moving 2 at the beginning of the game was actually an errata, like 600 years after it got invented. And then I had to invent another rule called en passant, but I'll leave it there because you guys probably don't care. All right.
Ian, take us home.
All right, couple things. One is for those of you who play Lord of the Rings LCG. I released my latest fan expansion for that based on First Age stories. So I've been working on a whole cycle based on the story of Turin Turambar, and I released the 4th one a few weeks ago, which you can find on my site, Tales from the Cards. And so I only have 2 more to go to finally finish that thing off. It's been a process of a few years, and I think the delay for this pack was the longest because I was developing Stranger Things, so sorry. Arkham has interfered a little bit with that, but it's okay. I find too that I generally need a kind of break after each one I make because it's an intensive process. And so now I am working on another Arkham custom scenario, which is going along, and then I'll go back to doing Lord of the Rings, so it's a never-ending process.
How big of like a brain of a mentality switch is it to go from designing an Arkham scenario to a Lord of the Rings scenario and back? Or are you just so in-depth with both games that it's nothing to you?
It's definitely a switch, but not like so much that it throws me off. Because I've been designing, I think, what is this? This was the 8th Lord of the Rings scenario I've designed, so it's kind of just a process I have down by now. Arkham's still a little newer, so I'm still getting a hang of like a little newer in terms of me designing for it, so I'm still getting a hang of like how to go about it. But they're definitely, some of the stuff is essentially the same as far as like how you go about, planning the cards and stuff, but the actual design process is different just because the games are so different. I find the balancing for Lord of the Rings a lot harder just because it's harder to balance for scaling in Lord of the Rings. Arkham encounter cards kind of scale themselves because only one player is drawing them. So, yeah.
I think Arkham has, and I've not developed scenarios for either of them, but just being a longtime player of both, I feel like Arkham probably has more of a rhythm that you can sink in with, whereas Lord of the Rings feels like you're taking swings at the players.
Yes. Yeah. That's definitely true, and kind of trying to balance those swings so that you're just not knocking them out or going too light. I just find designing Arkham a faster process. I don't know why. Whereas Lord of the Rings, I think too with Lord of the Rings, there's such an established history of mechanics and scenarios that I'm always having to really think outside the box, especially because of how I like to design things, which is really weird stuff, weird mechanics that I really have to think about. Okay, what am I going to do different this time around? Whereas Arkham, there's still a ton of unbroken ground, and I think the system too just allows for a lot of room to do all kinds of things. Really, it's almost like an RPG in that sense that it's really leaves a lot of room to of course not quite that open-ended, but you can do a lot with the Arkham system, I think. The other quick thing is just taking a page from Nick's book and delving into a dead CCG. In this case, the Star Trek CCG. One of the two big ones, that and Middle Earth. I kind of skipped Magic and went straight to those two. So I've already, the past couple of years gotten back into Middle Earth a little bit, but now I've been looking at the Star Trek, trying to collect some of those cards that I once had. And it's kind of fun, too, because, I was playing back in 95, 96, 97, and then fell off. So it's been fun reading and catching up on the history of, like, what cards got banned, and how did the game develop after I stopped playing. And I feel like all of these CCGs have really interesting histories of how they develop. And just the old CCG mechanics are kind of fun. Of this one, you essentially build like a board of missions at the beginning, and you put dilemmas under each mission that players are going to have to face when they try to complete a mission. So kind of interesting, like board game like mechanics. And there's both a first edition and second edition. The second edition is way tighter on game mechanics, but I like first edition because it's just that insane, like, CCG level of, like, weird card effects and complexity.
And this was the Decipher game, right?
Yep, yeah, this was another Decipher one.
Decipher was notorious for just being like, here's some weird mechanic that works with these three cards, and it's just so complicated, but it's fun.
Asteroid rules in effect.
I've never known another card game to reference specific titles of cards as much as Decipher has with, like, Star Wars.
Oh, Star Trek does that a ton. Like, instead of just having blanket, like, this nullifies all, like, events, for example. It's like, you have a cue card, this nullifies this card, and this card, and this card. Like, 3 other cards, And then the other one will reference that card. It's just...
immune to it's worse.
And I'm a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings TCG that Decipher did later. And I've never played the Star Trek one, but in talking with Caleb about, because he was big into Star Trek as well, talking with him about Star Trek, I was like, it almost feels like with Lord of the Rings they took a backward, like, it felt like Star Trek was better developed for that, like, you're playing your own board state, but you're affecting your opponent. In their board state, it felt like Star Trek was more advanced in that design than Lord of the Rings was. And I fucking loved Lord of the Rings, like, so now I actually really want to play a game of Star Trek and get an idea for what it feels like.
Well, I'll bring it to Gen Con and you can.
Brian made me try it. It was actually pretty solid. It reminded me... I feel like it handled that whole dual nature thing better because, like, Lord of the Rings could get so swingy. Like, if you're supposed to be taking your fellowship turn and you just draw into a shit ton of shadow cards, it's like, well,
yeah. If your opening hand is a Hobbit sword and 4 Nazgul cards or whatever, it's just like, well, all right, I'll pass.
Yeah.
Do my one mandatory move and that's it.
There was one card that I love, reading that it got banned so quickly because it was just the worst card, which was called Raise the Stakes, because they often play poker in Star Trek. So, of course, it has the image of them playing poker, but it was basically playing, and then either your opponent forfeits, or if whoever wins gets to pick a random card from their opponent's deck and keep it.
What? No! That's no Decipher.
That's like the old Magic ones. The old Magic. That's how Magic was originally designed. It was like anti cards at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. It was like force trading.
Yeah.
It was like
I was gonna say Pogs exactly.
Pogs. There's a year and a half of my life I don't want back. Nope. We can keep that in the old memory vault there.
Oh man, I had this one slammer that was in the shape of a ripsaw blade. Oh god, I missed that thing, because what I would do is I would just slam it down on the pile and, like, actively damage my opponent's pogs and be like, oh, I'll take that off your hands.
Yeah, I got this damaged pog. My strategy's good. No, the only people I ever play, I think I played with Sean maybe once or twice, but I played with my cousin down in the cities, so if he actually kept pogs, I would just never see them again, because I only saw him, like, once a summer or whatever. Ugh.
Good old pogs.
Yeah.
I was glad with those went out and in came, like, Tamagotchis and Gigapets, because that was a way more way more lucrative way to waste your time. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up here for episode 36 of Mythos Busters. As always, find us on Facebook, join our Discord, and call our hotline. Again, that's 203-493-6984. Guys, we'll see you next time on Mythos Busters.